Okay, these are chapter notes drawn from the social psychology textbook. This is to do with group influences, and I believe it was drawn from what, chapter 8, 9, and 13. Anyway, from various chapters within this textbook by Vaugan and Hogg. Okay, to begin with, we have groups, which are two or more people who share a common definition and evaluation of themselves and behave in accordance with such a definition. And yeah, they're defined by in-groups and out-groups. Okay, there's antitativity. Antitativity. There's antitativity. There's antitativity, which is the property of a group that makes it seem like a coherent, distinct, and unitary entity. High antitativity groups have clear boundaries and are internally well structured. They're basically relatively homogeneous, and these are more interdependent than the low E groups. Low antitativity groups have fuzzy boundaries and structures that are relatively heterogeneous. Common bond and common identity groups. Tony's in 1887 proposed the idea between Gemeinschaft, which is community, and Gesellschaft. Forgive my German. Anyway, association. Social organization is based on close interpersonal bonds, and social organization is based on a more formalized and impersonal associations. Social organization is based on close interpersonal bonds or connections with others. But if you want more like formalized sort of relationships, that's to do with impersonal associations. Prentice et al. 1994 distinguished between common bond groups, which are groups based upon attachment among members, and common identity groups, which are groups based on direct attachment to the group. Sazzenberg stated that members of common groups operated according to an egocentric principle. Basically, they maximize their reward and minimize their costs, while they respected their own contributions. In common bond groups and personal groups are more salient than the group goals. Members of common identity groups operate according to the altruistic principle, where one maximizes the group rewards and minimizes costs through their own contributions. Individualists are people in groups that behave much the same way as they do in pairs by themselves, and group processes are nothing more than just interpersonal processes, exchanges, relationships, yada yada yada. And collectivists, on the other hand, is the behavior of people in groups, and it is influenced by unique social processes that are cognitive representations occurring and emerging from groups. Here are the definitions of what a group pertains to be, like collection of individuals interacting with each other, interdependent, achieve the same goal, influence each other, roles, norms, they have the same joint association. Okay, group processes are interpersonal processes between more than two people. Group effects on individual performance. Social facilitation, it improves the performance of a well-learned easy task, and deterioration in the performance of poorly learned difficult tasks. In the mere presence of members of the same species, this was discovered by Allport in 1920. Mere presence is the idea that refers to entirely passive and unresponsive audience that is only just physically present. Audience effects is the impact of the presence of others on individual task performance. Drive theory, proposed by Zayon's theory, involves what physical presence of members of the same species instinctively cause heightened arousal, and that motivates performance of habitual behavior patterns. It is argued that because people are relatively unpredictable, there's a clear advantage to being more alert and reading other people. There's increased arousal motivation, which is instinctive reaction to social presence. Arousal functions energizes behavior, which is our dominant response in that particular situation. Evaluation apprehension, proposed by Cottrell in 1972, argued that the physical presence of members of the same species causes drive, because people have learned to causes a motivational drive because people have learned to be apprehensive about being evaluated by others. Marcus in 1978 discovered in a mere presence of others while dressing in unfamiliar clothing slowed down the performance of wearing an unfamiliar sock, and attentive audience had no additional effect actually, which supported the idea of drive theory rather than evaluative apprehension, because you're just alert that there's another person there and you have heightened arousal. It's no different from whether that person is attentively actually looking at you or not. You just feel more arousal. Anyway, distinction conflict theory is the physical presence of members of the same species as distracting, and this produces conflict between attending to the audience. So basically it's like building on the mere presence effect found by Marcus. In that distraction conflict theory, is the physical, basically you're getting distracted as a result of heightened arousal. And yeah, stated distractors impairs task performance, and attentional conflict produces drive, which facilitates the dominant response. Sanders et al. In 1978 judged performance in an easy and difficult digit copying task, either alone or co-acting or with someone performing the same or different tasks. They found, or she, I don't really know who the researcher is, found participants in distraction made more mistakes on difficult tasks and copied more digits correctly on simple tasks. The non-drive explanations of a social facilitation. In this mindset, drive is difficult to measure. It is seen as a physiological concept and could mean alertness in this context. The absence of arousal doesn't really ensure whether drive exists or not. It's really hard because it could mean what physiological concept or motivation, which are, in a way, two different things. Okay, self-awareness theory. People focus their attention on themselves as an object, making comparisons between their actual and ideal self. You have self-discrepancy theory, which is building off self-awareness theory, the discrepancy between actual and ideal self, which motivates one to go towards the ideal self. On easy tasks, performance improves, but on difficult tasks, discrepancy is too great, so people give up trying and performance deteriorates because they give up. Self-presentation, proposed by Bond in 1982, desire to make the best worst possible impression of themselves to others. Errors created embarrassment on more difficult tasks, and this impaired performance. Attentional consequences proposed by Estabrook in 1959 basically stated that people narrowly focused on their attention when they experience attentional overload. Barron in 1986 believed people have a finite attentional capacity, and difficult tasks require just more attention as a result. Social facilitation revised. According to a meta-analysis studied by Bond and Titus in 1983, the mean presence accounted for just 0.3 to 3% of variation in behavior. It's not just the presence of the audience, but it's also to do with the relationship between the performer and the audience themselves, which mediates the risk-taking behavior. Task taxonomy. The group task can be classified according to whether division of labor is possible, whether there is predetermined standards to be met, and how an individual's input can contribute. This is judged by 3 dimensions, such as, for example, is a task divisible or unitary? A divisible task has benefits from the division of labor, where different people can help perform subtasks that fulfill the task. A unitary task cannot be subdivided. Another idea is whether it maximizes or optimizes a task, as in the idea of task taxonomy. Maximizing a task would involve open-ended tasks that stress quality, while optimizing has a set standard and objective is to be met to that particular standard. So maximizing in a way is just reaching the highest attainable goal, while optimizing is more to do with just reaching the minimum amount set standard. Okay, how are individual inputs related to group products or group's product? The additive task is where group's product is the sum of individual inputs. The compensatory task is where one's group's product is the average of the individual's input. Disjunctive task is where the group selects as its adoptive product from one's individual input. The conjunctive task is where group's product is determined by a rate or level of performance of the slowest/least able member. Then you have the discretionary task, where the relationship between individual inputs and the group's product is not directly dictated by task features or social conventions, but rather the group is just free to decide the preferred action. Other things to think about include process loss, which is the deterioration of in-group performance in comparison to individual performance due to a whole range of possible interferences among members. Then you have coordination loss, which is a deterioration in group performance compared with individual performance due to problems in the coordinating behavior. Okay, social loafing and social impact. Ringelmann effect. Individual effort on a task diminishes as group size increases. Possible explanations include coordination loss owing to jostling, distracting, and the tendency for people to pull slightly against one another. Participants were prevented from attaining their full potential. Then you have motivation loss, where participants are less motivated and do not try hard. Social loafing is a reduction in individual effort when working on a collective task, or one in which outputs are pooled with those of other group members, compared with working either alone or coactively, where outputs are not pooled. Basically, let me really explain social loafing. Basically, social loafing is a tendency for individuals to work less hard. Basically, it's a tendency for individuals to work less hard on a task when they believe that others are also working on the task. They weren't as motivated, believing individual effort wasn't actually worth that much. Free ride effect, which is an idea of gaining benefit of group membership by avoiding costly obligations of memberships and by allowing other members to incur these costs. You have an idea of social impact, which is the effect that other people have on attitudes and behaviors as a consequence of factors such as group size, temporal and physical immediacy, and social compensation. Increased effort on a collective task to compensate for our group members' actual perceived or anticipated lack of effort or ability. So social compensation is probably the worst thing in any group task, group project, whatever, because one has to do the majority of the work and the others do not. Okay, cohesiveness, where group properties that effectively bind people as group members to one another and to the group as a whole, giving the group a sense of solidarity and oneness. You have this idea of groupthink, which is a mode of thinking in highly cohesive groups that desire to reach unanimous agreement, and this overrides the motivation to adopt proper rational decision-making procedures. The causes of groupthink include excessive group cohesiveness. There are also other antecedents. Risky shift is the idea that groups already tend towards making risky decisions that polarize through discussion to an even more riskier decision. It is more riskier than the mean of members' pre-decision opinions. Basically, members of a group, they tend to go to a risky decision. This was found by a guy named Stoner, 1968. I'm not going to go into that. Okay, group polarization is a tendency for group discussion to produce more extreme group decisions, as stated before in Risky Shift. Persuasive argument theory is the view that people in groups are persuaded by novel information that supports their initial position, and thus they become more extreme in their endorsement of their initial position. The bystander effect. People are less likely to help others when in an emergency. When there's a greater number of others, they're less likely to help anyone. Bystander intervention would be the opposite of a bystander effect, where they break out of this bystander role and actually go and help people in the emergency. Latane and Darley's cognitive model, researchers ask empathy for another's suffering, civic responsibility, and whether these led to intervention within dangerous situations. This involved danger for personal property, an unusual event rarely encountered by the ordinary person, and can differ wildly in nature, from a bank on fire to a pedestrian being mugged. It is not foreseen nor prior planning of how to cope. This requires instant action, and slow consideration of the option is just not feasible. If there's a failure to label whether something is an emergency or not, this could basically mean that there's a failure to help the victim, and it doesn't have a good outcome for the victim. Processes contributing to the bystander effect include whether the individual is present with others, can the individual see or hear others that are aware, can these others monitor the behavior of the individual. There's various ideas such as the diffusion of responsibility, which is the tendency of individuals to assume others will take responsibility, where Yeah, as a result, no one does. You have a fear of social blunders, which is a dread of acting inappropriately or making a fool of yourself in front of others. And there's a desire to avoid ridicule, and that in turn inhibits effective responses to any emergency. Social influence is seeing what others do as a model to justify action/inaction. When others are unworried, situations seem less serious. They're free in one experiment performed by Lataine and Darley's experiment. They detect operation of one or three processes using cameras, and I think this one was the one where there was smoke in the room. Anyway, this could have they could have be seen, see but not be seen, and not see. They were told that they could have been seen, that they see and could be seen, that they see but not be seen, or that they not see but be seen, or neither seen nor be seen. Anyway, this complexity was necessary to allow the consequences of sequentially adding social influences and audience inhibition to do as well, like diffusion of responsibility. Additive effect could combine all three explanation processes to stop people from helping. Limits to the bystander effect include bystanders are strangers to each other, and they inhibit helping even more because communication between them is lower. When bystanders know each other, there is much less inhibition of pro-social behavior than in groups of strangers, and there's a salient category when female needs help and bystanders are male. Basically, they take on a chivalrous role, and social identity and context are able to define whether one is keen to help or not.